Wow, this hand really blew me away. This is heads up at the WCOOP 25K High Rollers tournament between tournament crusher Henrik Hecklen versus cash game end boss Linus Loeliger, seen here putting people's souls into neat little stacks. Linus min raises the button here, and he's mostly been raising instead of limping with the chip lead, and Hecklen 3-bets him with 7-6 offsuit, which should be a minority play for Hecklen, but probably indicates that he's using a slightly polarized 3-betting range, as demonstrated by this pre-flop model, where I've given Hecklen a little bit of board coverage for everything. Earlier at this final table, we do see Hecklen limp call pocket kings against Linus from the small blind, so I definitely give this guy credit for mixing it up with the best of them. Linus quickly flats, king-jack offsuit is way too strong to fold heads up, and way too weak to put it in for 40 big blinds. Hecklen miraculously flops an open-ended straight draw, and he bets exactly 23% of the pot. At this final table, Hecklen has been mostly using 23 and 33% bet sizing, betting his range in all of the good spots, and I expect him to close his eyes and bet 23% of the pot here regardless of his holding. But wait, you might say. I ran the Piosim, and if you use a 23% bet sizing, it shows Hecklen only betting 56% of the time. And this is true. Betting 56% of the time will yield an EV of about 838,000 chips. However, if you run the sim and force Hecklen to bet out of position 100% of the time, Hecklen's EV only falls to 820,000 chips, an 18,000 chip differential in a 1.6 million chip pot, which is a 1% of the pot difference. Clearly, rather than mixing bets and checks and possibly messing up your strategy against Linus freaking Love, Hecklen should just bet 100% of the time here, and our model is going to assume that from here on out. Facing such a small bet size, Linus should fold nearly nothing, and I'm amazed that even pre-flop peels like Queen 7 of spades and King 6 of hearts are all calls in the flop if Hecklen is making some pre-flop moves. For Linus, some of his strongest 10s are raises, pocket jacks are raises if he has them, and everything else pretty much calls to evaluate the turn. One quick aside, it's really important that when you're doing your model making, you just don't put in 150 different sizes here and expect that you're going to have a playable strategy. Whenever you can simplify your strategy to using one action and one size 100% of the time while only sacrificing about 1% in EV, you should be taking that simplification rather than going for a mixed strategy. The turn 5 is actually the second best card to continue firing on besides the 4, because it's much more likely Hecklen has random 5x in his polarized 3-betting range than Linus has in his capped, condensed 3-bet defense range. 7-6 offsuit is clearly a 100% bet when one of the best turns comes for you, and he fires small again, as he does with all of his strong hands, in order to protect his range from raises and getting blown off his hand. What I was shocked to see is how few hands Linus should be folding facing continued aggression on the turn. He barely should be folding anything. Nearly everything with 2 overcards should continue, 0 aces fold on the turn, and I have a feeling this is a spot that is wildly overfolded by the general public, who might release a hand like King 9 of spades on the turn, but obviously Linus is not part of the general public, and he easily finds a call with a hand as strong as King Jack offsuit. The river is an ace. Hecklen is at the bottom of his range, his club is low enough that it doesn't block too many of Linus's club draws, so it definitely should be a candidate bluff on the river, though having no club in his hand would admittedly make Hecklen's bluff a lot stronger. In this model, Pio doesn't always fire 7-6 offsuit, but it's very possible that with Hecklen's hand selections on the turn, he shed many of his total airballs, and now 7 high is consistently at his very, very worst of his hands by the river and becomes a mandatory bluff. In this model, Pio prefers a pretty even mix, betting small, betting slightly larger, and going all in, but if we create a subtree configuration and on the river reduce our options to only 23 and all in, we'll see that the smaller size is the preferred betting option, and you should bet 7-6 offsuit the majority of the time. If Hecklen only uses this bet size on the river, which I suspect he might with only 40 big blinds in his starting stack, then this is how Linus should respond. He should obviously shove all of his 5x type hands, pocket 10s, his strongest aces which can outkick his opponent who play the board, But Pio also peels the river with King Queen and King Jack, which block Ace King, Ace Queen, and Kings, Queens, and Jacks, all of which are very likely candidate hands to want to block bet the river. Of course, it's one thing to recognize this in Piosolver, but can Linus actually make the call with $587,000 on the line? Of course he can. He's LLinusLove. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it.